Hey guys, I'm Drago, and today I'm ill. Seriously, I've been all sniffly and sneezing, and my head really hurts, and I've been all woozy and lightheaded. And then on top of that, my neighbours are doing all this construction work, which is really quite loud. So if you hear any of that, I apologise. But you know what? The show must go on. Let's do this. Today, I was thinking about Animal Crossing. All the villagers in Animal Crossing are a different animal species, and a lot of those species actually line up with the Five Nights at Freddy's animatronics. And I thought it might be fun to have a look at what the FNAF animatronics would look like as Animal Crossing villagers. Just a silly idea that I thought, you know what, let's give it a go. So if you like this idea and would like to see other franchise crossovers, not just FNAF but other things as well, then let me know in the comments down below. And I hope you guys enjoyed this video. So in this video, I decided to do the original 4 animatronics from FNAF 1. And of course, I started with Freddy. But my first attempt at making this was absolutely awful. I did it all in one sitting and I thought it looked decent at the time. But then when I went back to look at it the next day, I was like, no, that looks awful. The proportions were completely off. It was just like nothing like my normal quality. And I really wasn't happy with it. So I thought, you know what, scratch that, I'm going to do it again, all from the start. So when trying again, I got more references of bear villagers this time. And I am going for the bear villager. There are actually 2 types of bear villagers. There is the normal bear villager and then the bear cub villagers, which are the smaller ones. For Freddy, I'm going for the normal bears. This is very much a style that I haven't really dabbled in before. You know, I'm a horror artist, so doing these more cutesy styles is quite difficult for me, but it's always a challenge that I like to try. So the sketch took me quite a while to get somewhere where I liked it. Obviously, I was going to make it different from other bear villagers to make it fit Freddy a bit more. So for example, the nose was actually going to be larger and intersect the top of the muzzle like the original Freddy model in FNAF. There'd be a different eye shape, different muzzle shape, just things to fit Freddy a bit more. Because while all the villagers have sort of the same body shape, their proportions are around the same, there's a lot of freedom in how you actually design them. You know, they all have different style eyes, different style muzzles, different style noses. Their patterns are different, you know, all the colours. So you have a lot of freedom in that respect. Now, I didn't really want to lean into the fact that this design is based on an animatronic. And I thought one of the ways I could do that is to have darker circles around his eyes. And I wanted to do this to mimic the sort of eye holes of the mask of the animatronic suit. And it just leans a little more into it being, you know, the Freddy design. It is Freddy and not just a brown bear, you know. Of course, the other thing I need to do is think about clothing for them. Every Animal Crossing villager has its own bit of clothing that it wears. And so for each one, I needed to design a piece of clothing for them to wear. For Freddy, I decided to go for a nice stylish waistcoat. I just felt like it was something that would fit him quite well. This sort of big band vibe with him. And also for his expression and personality. If you don't know, every single Animal Crossing villager has a personality trait. And for Freddy, I thought he would fit the lazy trait. And this is to allude to how he doesn't move in the actual game until night 3, unlike the others that are all active from like night 1 onwards. And yes, Foxy can very rarely appear on night 1. So to fit that personality, I gave him a very chilled out expression. The other thing I changed from my initial drawing was I didn't line everything. This is because Animal Crossing has this sort of texture on all of their models, and that's something I wanted to try and replicate. And lining everything was not going to make that happen, especially on areas like the muzzle where it sort of blends into this texture that there is. So I didn't line them, and I was going to add them in purely using colour. Now to emulate this texture, I used my airbrush and I very lightly dabbed on a fuzzy static texture from the brush shapes. Put it on an overlay layer so it would overlay every colour really nicely, it would fit in nicely, turn down the opacity, and that gave it this sort of soft fabric look that all the Animal Crossing villagers have. And then I put my blur brush onto the same fuzzy static texture, and I used that to blend in the colour of the muzzle or all the other sort of colour patterns like the eye rings and the stomach. Blend that into the texture that I just added. And it almost makes it look like the bump maps of the 3D model. The bump maps being what adds in the sort of 3D look to the texturing without it being actual 3D mesh, you know. It's basically 3D parts of the texture without it being part of the 3D model itself, I guess. It's sort of a really simple way of explaining it. But this is already looking way better than my last attempt, and deciding to blur these areas in instead of lining them, it made it look so much better. In terms of texturing, there isn't really too much to do. These models are quite simple. They have the sort of overall general texture, but not much more than that. So for me, this was mainly just making it look a lot more 3D, really exaggerating the round shapes like on the ears, and just making everything pop out a bit more, everything rounder, everything look a bit softer like how it is in the Animal Crossing style, because everything is very, very round and soft in that style. And the last thing to do was add a little bit of shading just to exaggerate some areas a bit more, separate some areas a little bit more, and add to the 3D look. Now, Bonnie was actually quite a difficult one to do. All the rabbit villagers are this really, really cutesy style, whereas Bonnie really isn't that cute. You know, he's one of the creepier animatronics of the original 4, so it's really hard to translate his design into a cuter style. And then the other issue I had was I found it really hard to make the head look right, you know, have it be the right shape, not have it be too big. There was a lot of experimenting, a lot of deforming it with my deform tools, but eventually I think I got there. Now, his personality definitely gives me Cranky vibes. Cranky is basically like a grumpy personality, and you know, Bonnie in the games always has this sort of fed up look to him. It's quite funny. So I thought I'm going to give him that really fed up look on this, you know, the half-lidded look, and have him be the cranky personality. In terms of his clothing, it's another one I found really hard to think about. I eventually decided on this brown leather jacket. So not only is it a kind of casual, but it also fits into his rockstar aesthetic a bit as well, with it being a leather jacket. Now, while I was lining him, it was actually quite funny because it looked like this weird sort of emoji mochi ball thing with the way the eyes were, because I wasn't lining everything in all at once. Exactly like Freddy, not everything's going to be lined. For example, the muzzle won't be lined. So it looks really funny when you're doing this sort of line work where not everything is filled in. So it just looks really weird for a while. Now, as for his colouring, Bonnie was always meant to be blue. We know that he was never meant to be a purple rabbit, he was always meant to be a blue rabbit, and that it was the lighting in FNAF 1 that made him look purple. But the purple colouring for FNAF 1 Freddy is also really iconic at this point. So I wanted to sort of show both. I went for a purple that was much closer to blue on the colour wheel. So while he still kind of looks like the purple of FNAF 1 Bonnie, he is also closer to the shade of blue that Bonnie was always meant to be. So it represents both worlds. And just like Freddy, I also gave him the dark rings around his eyes. This is something I'm going to do for all 4 of them, just to really give it that animatronic feel. Now, when shading Bonnie, I actually went back and I used my soft eraser to erase around the edges a little bit. And this was to add a little bit of backlighting. Realistically, a shape as round as his head, which sounds like an insult, but it's not for some reason. The rabbits just have really round heads in Animal Crossing. But something as round as his head would realistically have a little bit of light on the edge as well, even in the dark shadow areas. And just adding that little bit of light by erasing a tiny bit of the shadow actually really helped it pop and make it look a lot more 3D. Now the chicken villagers always trip me up because they feel like such a different style to every other villager, and I actually found it really hard to make Chica. Getting the beak shape was quite difficult. Eventually I got there, and the funny thing is there is actually already a villager that looks almost exactly like Chica. I think his name is Egbert, I'm not sure though, but he's the one I'm using as reference here. So it's basically just taking him and slightly editing him, which is quite funny. But of course I made sure to put Chica features on there, namely the 3 feathers on her head. I still kept the dark rings of the animatronic eyes, and I even gave her cupcake. A cupcake that was supposed to look cute but ended up kind of horrifying. I was going for an idea of something that was sort of messily decorated with a lot of icing, like too much icing, and that icing is all slumping and dripping down, and the sugar eye decorations that make the eyes of the cupcake, they're all sort of slumping and dripping because there's so much icing. It looked a bit horrifying, but it's also kind of funny, so you know what, whatever. As for Chica's personality, I thought she'd really fit the Peppy personality quite well. Peppy being very upbeat, very happy, very energetic, and I think that fits her really friendly persona quite a lot. Honestly, I'm rambling because my head hurts so much and I'm finding it hard to think about things to say for this. So I hope you guys are enjoying the video and you're enjoying my crazy ramblings right now. It's also why I'm not saying too much for each one. As for Chica's clothing, of course I had to incorporate the Let's Eat in there somehow. So I took her bib and I just made it into a normal t-shirt, and I put the Let's Eat pattern on there. I did that by basically typing Let's Eat, and then I rotated and deformed each letter to fit the curve of her body, then used my selection tool, dilated the selection a bit, made a few outlines, and I basically had the Let's Eat pattern perfectly. Everything else on her was exactly like I've done for the others, that being the blurring technique, that being also the texturing to make it all look 3D, and then a little bit of shading. Now, after she was done, something just looked off about her and I couldn't figure it out. And in the end, I realised it's because I made her body way too big in proportion to her head. Now, I'd already drawn everything. I did not want to have to go back and draw everything again. So what I decided to do was to export her, put her back into the canvas, and select the body and the head and separate them. Took some cleaning up, but I was able to take the body layer and actually shrink the whole body in one go. It would slightly lower the quality of it, but at this point, it is a better option than leaving it how it was or drawing the whole thing again. And after doing that, I realised that was the problem. The body was way too big in proportion to the head, and shrinking the body down a bit actually really helped make it look a lot more like an Animal Crossing villager. Finally, we move on to Foxy, who is the first of the 4 to not actually have a direct species of a villager. Now, there is a fox in Animal Crossing, that being Red. He's a special NPC who sells you artwork, but because he is a special NPC, he's not a villager. I couldn't use him as reference because I'm going mainly for villagers here and not NPCs. So the closest thing to a fox as a villager is the wolves. And honestly, I think it's going to look perfectly fine. I mean, as you can see here, there's already wolf villagers that look like foxes, so I think it works great. Now, I used to draw wolves all the time. Like, it was my thing that I used to do before dragons and horror art and stuff. So this was fairly easy to me. One of the ones that's a lot more in my comfort zone. It's just adapting this into things to make it like Foxy. So, to make it look like Foxy, first of all, I gave it the hair. Now, I didn't want to do the sticking up hair because none of the wolves have that. I decided to do what a lot of the wolves have in common, which is the hair that goes down over the forehead. So I did 3 tufts of hair to show the 3 hairs that come out of Foxy's head. I also obviously gave them the eye patch and a hook hand. As for his clothing, I thought something like a rugged torn up tank top would work quite well for him. So I really wanted to lean into this broken down feel of his design in the original game and have him look a lot more rugged like a pirate. I also wanted to add in an idea of his withering. Obviously Animal Crossing is a kids game, it's all cutesy, I can't do open wounds. So I decided to get creative with it. First of all, to show the withering on his legs, I decided to give him a peg leg off one leg. I decided to put bandages on areas like his hand, where in the game one of his hands is a completely exposed endoskeleton, so I put a bandage on that hand. I put a bandage on his other leg to show the leg withering. I put plasters on his face, on his stomach to show more withering there. Basically a very kid-friendly way to show that Foxy is a very withered, injured design, but at the same time, it's not too gruesome, it's not too vivid, it's not graphic at all. But it's kind of cute because it makes him seem like this kid who is really not afraid to get himself injured in the name of fun. You know, scraped knees, little scratches on his arms, stuff like that. Just small minor things that any kid would get. With Foxy's personality, I almost gave him the smug personality because I feel like that sort of fits a fox quite well. But in the end, I actually decided Jock might be better for him, which is the sporty personality, because he's the one in the games that runs a lot. He's quite fast. You know, FNAF 1, FNAF 2, he's running a lot. So yeah, I think Jock fits him quite well. His colouring and texturing was all basically the same as everyone else. The main difference is that I actually gave him a pupil. The other 3 designs only just had the coloured iris. Here I decided to give him a white pupil because the thing that's unique about Foxy in the FNAF 1 game is that he always has that white shine in the middle of his eyes no matter what. The others sometimes get it if you see them in a dark area in the cameras. You'll see the little white dot eye. But Foxy has it all the time, constantly. So I made sure to add that into his design. I also made sure to stain his tank top so that again, he looks dirty, he looks a lot more rugged, he looks like someone that's outdoors a lot, all that sort of thing. Okay, and there's a look at what the original 4 FNAF animatronics could look like as Animal Crossing villagers. Let me know down in the comments below which of these is your favourite one. Personally, I really like how Bonnie turned out. I think he's hilarious with that grumpy expression. And I just really like how the shading and texture turned out on him. Guys, I am so tired. I'm exhausted. Doing this voiceover was really difficult for me, so I'm sorry that things are a bit shorter. Sorry that I've not said much, and I'm sorry if I sound a bit weird. But hopefully you enjoyed the video anyway. And if you did, maybe leave a like and subscribe. I'd really, really appreciate it. Let me know in the comments down below if you'd like to see more FNAF animatronics as Animal Crossing villagers. I can do all of them if you want me to. And let me know if you want to see any other crossover art. A huge shout out to my channel members, Hamza Javid and Danica Williams. Thank you so much for joining and becoming members of the channel. Your support is really appreciated. Thank you all for watching, and hopefully I will see all of you wonderful people in the next video. Bye!